In this story, we're faced with incredibly easy choices. A child describes the average crypto investor.
Not brave, just stupid.
And our protagonist adopts a League of Legends player. The year was 1272. The world was rich, its people poor. Beasts lurked around every corner, as was war. In the middle of this revolting society, a man, simple as they get, lived his days one at a time, collecting herbs at dawn, vanquishing monsters at dusk. Yet his days of ambition were behind him as he sought tranquility. This peculiar character was Geralt of Rivia, your local witcher and full-time gambling addict. The story began as Geralt and his father figure, Vesemir, were in search of the Yennefer of Vengerberg, a powerful sorceress and one of Geralt's myriad lovers. She had something important to tell him. Knowing little to nothing of her whereabouts, they rode to the nearest town, a war-consumed hellhole called White Orchard, seeking to ask the populace. But sadly, they weren't much help.
Looking for a woman.
I've not seen nor smelt a lady. Believe I'd remember.
I'm looking for a woman. Seen anyone like that?
Of course not.
But before proceeding, Geralt had to dedicate a moment to his all-consuming obsession, a card game called Gwent.
Care for a quick round of Gwent?
It's a Geralt of Rivia himself.
Something else you'll be needing.
No. What do you do? Who are you?
Is this about love?
Oh my God! And after wasting several hours in quests of dubious importance,
Just staring at me pan.
Their persistence paid off when someone finally confirmed seeing or smelling Yennefer. However, their willingness to share this information came with a condition. They required a favor in return. Regrettably, this favor turned out to be an extraordinary task, slaying a colossal flying beast terrorizing the vicinities. So, without any alternative, they embarked on the perilous quest, all for them to mutter a few sentences.
My lieutenant demanded we defecate on command.
Stench.
But little did Geralt know this was just the beginning of a stream of extraordinarily unfair errands demanded by insane people in exchange for even the most insignificant bits of information.
Look around. Trouble brewing.
We should stay out of it, just this once.
But just as they were about to leave that hellhole en route to Vizima, where they said Yennefer was, the lady herself showed up at the pub.
That brawl? We didn't start it.
Excuses, excuses. You've not changed a bit.
Yen?
Leaving aside the fact that killing the griffin wasn't necessary, Yennefer and Geralt embarked on their journey toward Vizima to meet the Emperor. However, as they rode, an eerie and bone-chilling sensation gripped the air hostage, punishing the lungs. Within moments, the group was encircled by an army of inscrutable quadruped creatures and ominous dark riders. The wild hunt had arrived. A legendary assembly of ancient vigilantes, traversing the world with a noble quest to clean it of dark magic's eternal shadow, the root of wars, famine, and the downfall of civilizations. They were after Yennefer, a prominent figure in the world of the obscure, and one that would guide them toward their ultimate goal. By the skin of their teeth, our couple managed to escape the relentless wild hunt, finally arriving in Vizima. Their mission, to seek an audience with Emperor Emhyr, who would entrust them with a momentous quest, setting forth a chain of events that could hold the destiny of the entire world in its balance.
She trusts me, yes. So tell me why you're looking for her.
Their task was to find Cirilla, the Emperor's daughter. However, an intriguing twist lay within Ciri's lineage. She had not one, but two dads, the second one being Geralt of Rivia himself. Since she was a child, he had assumed the role of her surrogate father, nurturing her with the wisdom of swordsmanship and the knowledge of the wilderness. Nevertheless, given the circumstances and the inexorable passage of time, Geralt had to let his precious ward spread her wings to carve her own path in life. Now, destiny sought to reunite them.
Our little witch has grown into a young lady.
And thus, this epic adventure unfolded across the continent as Geralt and Yennefer followed in Ciri's footsteps, determined to find her and bring her home. Geralt didn't know the mysterious circumstances around Ciri's disappearance, nor the countless errands he'd have to complete, but one thing would remain constant throughout his journey. He was a dad on a mission. So, to begin the search, Geralt had two leads, a baron and a witch. Together with his trusty horse Roach, Geralt rode north, looking to meet the Bloody Baron, a violent alcoholic soldier who somehow lorded over the dirt hole they called Velen. Fittingly, the moment Geralt stepped on Velen soil, he was attacked by a pack of rabid dogs. And got himself in a pub brawl.
Don't touch him.
After dealing with them, he finally reached the Baron, who began telling him the story of how Ciri reached Velen.
She showed up some time ago. Exhausted, wounded.
She was running from the wild hunt. But instead of just continuing the tale, the selfish bastard, like everyone else, tasked Geralt with doing something for him first. He wanted him to find his missing wife and daughter. Of course, Geralt tried to negotiate a deal.
I need to find her. You play Gwent?
But it didn't work. So, he was left with no choice. Geralt came to Velen looking for a woman. Now he's looking for three. Meanwhile, he went after the second lead, a witch called Ciri. She was an old friend of Yennefer and a wanted fugitive, desperately eluding the world's watchful eye by shrouding herself in an intricate illusion. Now, Geralt would strike gold with this lady in several ways. To begin with, she didn't demand a single thing from him up front. Instead, she readily agreed to help the Witcher on his quest, guiding him through a complex cave system, looking for an elven sage she met before. She intuited that this sage might possess crucial knowledge regarding Ciri's whereabouts. So together they fought all kinds of beasts, including another Geralt,
It's a mind thing. You know,
and pieced together the cryptic messages this mysterious figure left behind, gradually inching closer to the heart of the cave, the very location of his hidden lair.
that took a great deal of power.
Just don't faint on me.
Now, in your firm embrace, what a new life.
But as they marched closer to the end, a familiar sensation stopped them in their tracks. The air grew dry and cold, the unmistakable signs of the wild hunt's presence. It was time to dance. With the axe-wielder vanquished, they listened to the sage's final message, who warned Ciri of the witches of Crookback Bog, whoever they were. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Now, continuing with the Baron's errands, Geralt asked a man if he had seen the Baron's wife and daughter. He said he had some info, but first he had to find his stupid goat.
Bear, run, you piece of
Princess!
Happy for you, but I'm kinda in a hurry.
With his pet back, the goat enthusiast told Geralt the Baron's wife had a miscarriage, that he could use the dead fetus's blood to track them. Anyway, the Witcher returned to the Baron and found things weren't going well.
You, where do I know you from, eh?
The place was experiencing an unscheduled combustion, and the Baron was undergoing a very programmed alcohol oversupply. Of course, nothing that a couple of fists to the face couldn't solve.
Ever fight a Witcher?
Shortly after, he began to... Jesus Christ. Shortly after, he began the process of unearthing the unborn child, and with the power of a lost demon tongue, Geraldo invoked its ghost.
Die Leute in diesem Höllenloch. Verfluchen sie mit haarigen Lippen. Lead me to those bound to you by blood.
And so he followed after the baby ghost in what continued to be the strangest quest Geralt had ever taken part of. After a while, the little poltergeist led him to a house, where Geralt approached its occupants with utmost subtlety.
God is dead.
Other room. Go on now.
The family said the Baron's wife was in Crookback Bog. He had 2 different sources mentioning the swamps, so that would be Geralt's next destination, an even more disgusting side of Velen.
Lebe wohl.
Strangely, on the way there, Geralt had the unstoppable urge to briefly defy the laws of physics and complete some contracts. Crookback Bog, a putrid, disease-ridden swamp teeming with vultures, drowners, and wriggling insects. No sane soul would set residence in such a pestilential place. Yet, a lone house stood in the heart of the bog, defying all logic and explanation.
Care for a round of Gwent?
Don't know you. Go away.
Come on.
After asking the kids, their grandmother appeared.
Any chance you play Gwent?
Me? Nay.
But nobody wanted to play Gwent with Geralt. Then he asked them about Ciri, if they had seen an ashen-haired woman, and one of the kids mentioned that a so-called Johnny might have. But things wouldn't be so straightforward. You see, the notion that a favor requires a request first is deeply ingrained in the people of this world from a very young age, so Geralt found himself engaged in a game of hide-and-seek with these little demons before they revealed Johnny's whereabouts.
Ready or not, here I come.
After winning the game, Geralt went in search of this John man, except he was no man. He was a golem from Wish. But despite this, Johnny rapidly became Geralt's favorite monster, as he showed signs of a good person, convincing the old woman to let him speak with the ladies of the woods, the bog's rulers.
How dare you disturb our rest, woman?
Naturally, these mysterious entities wanted something first. So after killing a sentient tree and asking a man for a donation, the 3 witches presented themselves before Geralt to retell their encounter with Ciri. Turns out Ciri was injured, and the witches picked her up to feed on her. Expectedly, Geralt wasn't happy about it, but hey, at least they were honest. Anyway, they finished up saying that Ciri escaped them and ended up in the Baron's residence. That would be very useful information if he didn't know that already. His irritation mounting, Geralt left the bog, still muttering and grumbling, completely forgetting to inquire about the Baron's wife in his emotional turmoil. Instead, back at the Baron's place, Geralt hatched a brilliant plan to confront him in a language that would pierce deep into his soul. Determined to break through the barriers, he was ready to make a statement that the Baron would remember until his final days.
Camille Blood-Edouin,
Hocus pocus abracadabra splathana.
Oh, gods, I hoped, despite all...
Chop, chop.
Of course, the Baron couldn't defy Gerald's words, so he had no option but finish retelling Ciri's story. After helping the Baron defeat a flying demon, Cirilla left to Novigrad, a major city in the north. Gerald was familiar with the place, so going there became his immediate objective. But then, a disturbing creature stormed in, cursing unintelligibly and knocking down objects in a fit of rage.
I'm sorry, Master. He's lost 6 times in a row.
Was that a League player?
You tell me. Man or monster?
Undeterred by the sight of a League of Legends player, Gerald continued his journey. Upon reaching Novigrad, Gerald went straight to the King of Beggars, one of the city's crime lords. If anyone knew the atrocities that took place in those dirty old alleys, it was him. But to his surprise, upon reaching the homeless king, the sight of a familiar face struck Gerald with the hard-hitting knuckles of the past.
We made something clear, sorceress.
Yes, high time.
Who do I spy?
Geralt?
Round of Gwent?
Triss Marigold, a formidable dark sorceress and Gerald's former partner, had sought refuge among the beggars, seeking solace from the king's relentless crusade against dark magic in his city, akin to the Wild Hunt's pursuit.
I take it you're in Novigrad on important business.
After encountering the fiery-haired woman, Gerald confided in her about his quest, fully aware she was trustworthy. Triss had connections within the city's underground, making her a powerful ally should things get hairy. Of course, he had to help her first. But after it was over, she made it abundantly clear that she was keen on a game of Gwent, or at least that's what Gerald understood.
I live in the Bits, near the fish market. Stop by. It'll be nice.
All right. See you later.
Maybe Gerald would finally get his round of Gwent, but first, Triss told him that a neuromancer, someone gifted in reading and interpreting dreams, could help him. According to the sorceress, this woman would unravel the nightmares that had been plaguing Gerald and guide him in the right direction. However, when reaching the neuromancer's house, Gerald found her in a permanent state of slumber, endlessly rocking on her bed and whispering pleas for help. Someone had possessed her. Nevertheless, Gerald's witcher senses quickly located the rascal. With the unreasonably attractive lady free from the little ogre, the dreams began. As Gerald succumbed to the infinite weight of his eyelids, his mind kindled with the sparks of past memories, and gradually a clear image of his next step emerged.
Careful.
Jaskier, one of Gerald's closest friends and the finest Gwent player he knew. Somehow, Jaskier, also known as Dandelion, held the key to finding Ciri. But of course it wouldn't be an easy task, as the man was reported missing. Thus, with the aid of another old friend, Zoltan...
Hey, Zoltan. You look good. A round of Gwent, maybe?
I'm not so sure.
Gerald embarked on a journey across the continent, determined to trace the women who had last been in his company. You see, Dandelion had a profound fondness for women, all kinds of women. So, with the list in hand, Gerald went after the first woman, a teacher.
Excuse me. I'm looking for Marabella.
I am she. Wait outside.
But after waiting inside, Gerald realized she wouldn't be much help.
Jee-haw, crack! She reined the beast in. The stallion danced betwixt her thighs. Lather bathed its chinny chin.
And since Gerald forgot to ask the second one the right questions...
Did you and Dandelion...
He had to go to the third one, who was simply too dumb to know anything.
Mean to say it weren't Dandelion saved you in Flotsam by severing your noose with an arrow from 100 paces?
What?
Finally, the fourth one, a pair of twins, actually knew something. Turns out Dandelion had been seeing a fifth woman named Priscilla. Fortunately, Priscilla proved to be a person of integrity and willingly disclosed everything she knew. It turned out that Dandelion's disappearance was a consequence of his involvement with the wrong crowd, leading him to be held captive in a secluded hut just outside the city. With this crucial information, Geralt now had a clear lead to follow and went on to rescue his dear friend.
It is good to see you, friend. Been a while since you were last in Novigrad. What?
Come on, let's play some Gwent.
But instead of playing Gwent, Jaskier launched into a tale recounting the last encounter he had with Ciri. Amidst a clash with the city's guards, Cirilla found herself severely nerfed during a cutscene, allowing a pair of 2 bronze players to best her. This promptly caused Cirilla to rage quit, leaving the colorful man to his own devices.
Damn it.
Fortunately, Ciri told Dandelion that she'd flee to the Skellige Isles, an archipelago to the north of the continent, far from the mainland. Without wasting much time, Geralt swiftly boarded a boat bound for the Isles, yearning for a night of peaceful rest, far removed from the constant threat of blades and the haunting presence of corpses, but instead cocooned in a comforting embrace of fresh, warm blankets. The sea was calm, the ocean breeze subtle. Under the canopy of a tranquil night, Geralt found a moment to indulge in nostalgic reveries of times gone by. Memories of adventures, a band of pirates sieged the ship, slaughtering everyone and sinking the vessel in the process. Gerald's expensive light armor, together with the plot, kept him from sinking and drowning with the wounded survivors, leaving him half dead on the shore. There, a passing stranger came to his aid, but sadly, Gerald's thirst for blood wasn't quelled, so he took it upon the peasant.
What's your name?
Steingrim.
Well, Steingrim, I feel like slapping you.
After dealing with the poor man, Gerald reached the city, reuniting with Yennefer.
Nobody wants to play Gwent.
She heard rumors that a magical anomaly destroyed part of the woods, described as a cayenne bright light, a signature of Ciri's powers, but the government had strictly forbidden any attempts to investigate the phenomenon. So, expectedly, their objective became doing exactly that. As they journeyed towards the site, Gerald, a discerning horse connoisseur, couldn't help but fancy a new mare for his ever-faithful companion, Roach, who miraculously survived the shipwreck as well. However, his methods weren't quite the most subtle. Upon reaching the site, a desolate, grim patch of forest, Yennefer was able to grant Gerald the ability to see the past, recreating the moments that led to the forest's subsequent destruction. The event revolved around 2 central figures, Cirilla and the sage accompanying her as they ran from the wild hunt. In the final vision, Cirilla opened a portal and escaped to Velen. Gerald found himself caught in a web of clues that seemed to lead him in circles, as that hellhole was the very place where his search began. But then, as Gerald studied the area, he found the body of one of the soldiers that perished in the destruction. The man wore an armor from a nearby village, Heindarsfjalks. Thus, they set their course to that unpronounceable village, only to find that the last person who had seen Ciri, a man by the name of Craven, wasn't very alive. Fortunately, Yennefer's mastery of dark sorcery allowed her to momentarily inflict infinite pain upon the man and bring him back from the abyss, compelling him to recount the fateful encounter. Ciri arrived at Hindersfjall in an unconscious state, with Craven carrying her back to his people to care for her recovery.
We fished you out of the sea.
The locals, like in every small European village, loved their hospitality to a violent degree, offering Ciri food and their sauna insistently. Unable to refuse their kindness, Ciri indulged in a few moments of relaxation before setting out to find her sage friend.
My sister, she didn't talk any nonsense to you, did she?
No. Except to mention that you fancy me.
Besides, it's not... Of course, you are very...
But you're not.
But tragically, Ciri's presence drew the eye of the wild hunt, who arrived just before they could leave, attacking those who aided her. Ever the noble soul, Craven bravely stood by her side, accompanying her to the shore to ensure her escape, but he was struck down, mortally wounded in the process. His people, misunderstanding the situation, believed him to be fleeing from the wild hunt, branding him a traitor, when in reality he was valiantly luring them out. And so his tale ended. Alone, in pain, his people thought him a traitor, and all for a fugitive dark sorceress that instantaneously rejected him. And to make matters worse, as his vision faded, as his lungs gave up, the last thing he saw was a League player.
What became of that creature? Where is he?
In a twist of fate, getting Uma became Gerald's main objective, for there was a possibility that the creature bore a curse and held crucial clues to aid in the search for Ciri. But as Gerald prepared to journey back to Velen, he found himself confronted by some irate locals who were far from pleased with Yennefer's actions. The dark sorceress had effectively sacrificed their sacred garden to bring back a tormented soul for their own selfish quest.
None shall open their door to you. None shall feed your hunger, and none shall tend to your wounds.
Come on. We can figure something out. Ever play Gwent?
Upon reaching the Baron's castle, Gerald asked to see the ugly man. One might wonder, how could anyone communicate with such a creature? Does it even understand the common tongue? To an outsider, it might have been an impossible task, but Gerald's expertise as a master witcher proved invaluable once again. With a keen understanding of the creature's nature, he knew exactly how to convince it to join him on his quest.
Want some luck skins? Got Yasuo skins as well. Well, come on.
And just like that, Gerald managed to get the player to follow him to the end of the world. After a long, long week of horse riding, the pair reached Kaer Morhen, the House of the Witchers. And after sharing the most important details of his journey...
Shame. That was a good bed.
Said the same myself.
Yennefer approached Gerald with a compelling proposal.
All right, what did I do this time?
No, nothing. I just wanted to take you aside, without cluing the others into what we're up to. Shall we go? You can rejoin them afterwards, in an hour. Or two.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't mind a round of Gwent.
Stop. Suddenly I have an immense desire to drink.
Come on, it's a fun game.
So if Yennefer didn't want to play Gwent, Gerald would spend the night with the boys.
Sometimes you're a real jackass, but I love you, brother.
The next day, all the preparations were complete, and the moment for the exorcism had come. The creature was bound to a table as Yennefer began reciting the incantations, attempting to reverse the curse that had befallen him. The process was intense, painful, and deeply distressing, but it was a much-needed step for both the creature's well-being and their quest to find Ciri. But then, as the ritual reached its climax, Uma stopped completely. His body went cold and his lungs breathless. Life escaped him. Everything seemed lost. But the dark sorceress wasn't having it. In a stroke of quick thinking, Yennefer formulated a hasty plan to pull him back from the brink. She would not let the League player succumb to his curse. It worked. In the end, Uma just needed sense beaten into him, proving once again that violence is an effective answer against stupidity. With the game uninstalled, they managed to save the man behind Uma. His name was Avallac'h, and he didn't take a minute before informing them of Ciri's location after gifting Geralt a mystical floating light. She was in the Isle of Mists, a dark, eerie corner of the world, forsaken by people and consumed by obscurity. If Geralt were to venture there, the Wild Hunt would surely notice his presence. But there was no other way. And so, a momentous and arduous journey began to gather as many allies as possible, assembling them all at Kaer Morhen to prepare for the inevitable confrontation with the Ice Riders. Some of these allies demanded daunting favors in return. Others requested wholesome, easy tasks. But eventually, after many hours of diplomacy, Geralt managed to sway his allies to unite under a common cause: the Battle of Kaer Morhen, to confront the Wild Hunt. The new objective beckoned: a long, long voyage across treacherous waters toward the Isle of Mists, all to reunite Cirilla with the comforting embrace of her home's warmth. The salty winds pushed a lonely boat across the vast sea, carrying one man and his 2 trusty swords. The horse was somewhere on that boat, too. The hours went by, the sun set, the cold came out to play, but the isles seemed ever so far away. Beneath the clear waters, sunken chests and buried treasures beckoned for aid, their shimmering allure inviting Geralt to veer off course. But with time ticking relentlessly, he resolutely shrugged off the temptation. Time was of the essence. Upon arrival, the only thing reaching sight was a gray landscape of monsters and decayed trees. As the name suggested, land and coast were veiled in a dense, humid mist, allowing only the sharpest of eyes to discern whatever lurked beyond sword's reach. Thankfully, Avallac'h's mystical light guided Geralt through that perilous terrain until he reached a solitary hut in the heart of the island. There, a group of dwarves sought shelter from the terrors beyond. Geralt asked them about Ciri, but as expected, they needed a favor first. 3 of their mates had gone missing, so it was the Witcher's job to find them. One of them took the fastest way down a rock.
Dead.
The second hadn't been breathing much as of late.
One of the missing dwarves. Shame he's dead.
And the third one was in the process of joining the other 2.
Wake up.
With the task completed, the dwarves revealed heart-stopping news. They had seen Ciri. In fact, she was with them at that very moment. However, nothing could have prepared Geralt for what he was about to witness.
And I love you.
Avallac'h's mystical light revealed itself to be none other than Ciri's very soul, purposefully separated from her physical body to shield her from the persistent pursuit of the wild hunt. But now, it was okay. Geralt was there. As they caught up, Ciri recounted her extraordinary journey, narrating the mesmerizing array of worlds she traversed and the diverse timelines she witnessed.
The world where Eridan couldn't find you, what was it like?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Try me.
A fat man was sitting in front of a device, something like a mystical scrying mirror. Within this mirror, he conjured visions of vibrant and ever-changing landscapes, like scenes taken from the realm of fairies. His bloated fingers danced upon a board of runes, weaving spells that brought forth moving images and sounds, as if enacting a conjurer's incantation in an ethereal tournament. Yet he had no armor or horse. Only the flickering glow of the device in front.
Ciri, stop fooling around.
Told you wouldn't believe me.
Throughout her journeys, Ciri had delved deep into the darkest corners of magic, harnessing the power to move through space and time, a form of forbidden witchcraft with the potential to unsettle the very essence of reality. It was this unquenchable thirst for power that rendered her a threat to the world, and in the eyes of the wild hunt, too dangerous to exist. But just as they were about to leave the island, Geralt saw as the dwarves sailed away with their boat, delaying their escape and allowing the wild hunt to find them. Maybe if Geralt and Ciri hadn't sat for 3 hours to chit-chat, the dwarves wouldn't have thought of leaving without them. Anyway, with no other means of leaving the isle, Ciri made use of her teleportation powers, transporting them to Kaer Morhen. After what felt like an eternity, Cirilla was finally home again, reunited with her surrogate family, like Uncle Vesemir, Mama Jen, or, stepsister, right? Triss. Of course, given Gerald's adventures with both Yennefer and Triss,
what?
The encounter would take a very uncomfortable turn. But despite the lingering emotions, Triss knew that the mission took precedence over personal matters. With little delay, the pivotal moment arrived. The once serene atmosphere quickly shifted, the air grew cold, and the trees swayed as if in distress. A somber veil of clouds shrouded the land. The wild hunt had arrived. In a synchronized dance, each member embraced their designated role, fully aware of the daunting odds against them. Gerald, alongside Lambert, a fellow witcher, gallantly ventured into the depths of the forest, their aim set on ambushing the wild riders and dismantling their portals. Meanwhile, the resourceful sorceresses and the rest of the witchers stood as an unwavering bulwark inside the fortress, battling, shielding, and pushing any ice walker that dared to tread inside. One after the other, the witchers sealed portals, denying the attackers of their siege weapons, but as one went down, two took its place. Rapidly, Gerald and Lambert saw themselves ensnared in an unending swarm of wild hunters. Yet, just as failure threatened with victory, a massive projectile hurtled from the heavens struck the area, sending a shockwave that burnt and knocked everything in its path.
Head back.
It was time to regroup.
Don't stop! Marigold will shield us!
But as the pair made their way back to the castle, the wild hunt numbers had overwhelmed their defenses. Yennefer's protective shield was wavering. It was too much.
Ciri, listen. Geralt, he adores Gwent. Play for me, child. Now fly!
As desperation tightened its grip and defeat was imminent, Vesemir's selfless sacrifice triggered a transformation in Ciri, unleashing a piercing scream of such demonic intensity that it sent the wild hunt scattering like leaves in a tempest. His courageous act might have bought Ciri some time, but the haunting question remained. How long until the wild hunters regrouped and returned? Nobody knew. But one thing was clear. If they wanted to stop the hunt, they needed to go for the Viper's head.
Vesemir's funeral. We should prepare.
After the Witcher family paid their respects to old Vesemir, it was time to come up with a plan to get rid of the wild hunt once and for all. It was then when Avallac'h emerged as a pivotal figure in their strategy. As an elven sorcerer, he intimately understood the elusive nature of the wild hunt and had endured their cleansing rampage firsthand. His plan? Track down Gales, a formidable general of the wild hunt. Avallac'h claimed he could perchance deceive the general into betraying his own people. Unfortunately, Gale's whereabouts remained partially unknown, for he commanded operations from a distant world, far beyond the grasp of any seeker. While Avallac'h and the rest planned the next step, Ciri and Geralt already knew exactly what they needed to do next. It was time to avenge Uncle Vesemir. Rumor had it that his executioner, a bald elf called Imlerith, was in Velen, on top of a mountain, basking in the pleasures of life. Naturally, our protagonists hasted there, deciding who gets to kill the pale man with a quick match of rock, paper, scissors.
Damn it!
Unsurprisingly, Geralt and his superior gambling skills were 5 seconds ahead of the naive Ciri, delivering a crushing victory. Now, it was time to kill the bastard. But upon reaching the summit, Geralt couldn't help but ask himself, why is this guy sitting on a rock on top of a mountain? Is he stupid? Nevertheless, Geralt was there to kill him. But that would not be an easy feat, as the giant elf possessed a power only a few can master, the ability to hit his opponents without making contact. But even without his superpower, Imrelith would be a hard challenge. As he was quick, he teleported around, and his mace hit harder than a divorce. The bald elf had proven too great a foe for old Vesemir. Would Geralt share his fate? Could he overcome the brute? Even on the verge of death, the Witcher's stubborn spirit was determined to see his objectives through. As Imlerith poised to deliver the final fatal blow, Geralt rose up from his battered, tired, and hurting state, swiftly blocking the strike with his silver sword. It was far from over. Vesemir was avenged. But Ilmarith was just the beginning. Now, it was time to find that Gales guy. While Ciri and Geralt were out hunting, Avallac'h and the sorceresses found a way to reach the Wild Hunt General. You see, Gales inadvertently left a series of open portals behind his travels, each one taking the user to a different location, but if used in order, would ultimately retrace his steps to his palace. In a cosmic odyssey, Geralt and the elven sage set out to locate the portals, treading on breathtaking worlds, fighting exotic creatures, navigating perilous environments, all under the gaze of an alien sky. After playing astronauts for several hours, Geralt and Avallac'h reached the Wild Hunt General's palace. There they were met by Gales himself, an imposing figure of immense military knowledge and influence. Few mortals had ever been privileged enough to encounter such a powerful individual.
I'm curious. You play Gwent?
Then it was Avallac'h's turn to challenge Gale's beliefs with a distorted truth, conveyed through a powerful dream.
Let's go, before any guards show up.
The leader of the Wild Hunt, Eredin, indirectly killed their beloved king, Oberon. In a moment of carelessness, and by the king's request, Eredin gave his majesty too much Viagra, causing him to have a heart attack and die. And yes, that's the real explanation. With a masterful exhibition of emotional manipulation, Avallac'h ignited an intense flame of hatred within Gales, who had been a loyal follower of the king, pushing him to make the momentous decision to betray the Wild Hunt leader, Eredin, and deny him of reinforcements should he request them. Deprived of crucial support, Eredin's army was left weakened, making the battle against him and the Wild Hunt appear less impossible, doable even.
Geralt, can we talk?
Since the battle of their lives was nigh, Yennefer and Triss had the marvelous idea of collaborating on a project, together with Geralt in case things went south during battle. Naturally, the Witcher didn't think it twice. But to his disgrace, this brilliant plan was nothing but an incredibly obvious trap to teach horny Geralt a lesson.
Triss, Yen.
Aha! Well, well.
So, after that disappointment, and after Geralt did 27 more side quests, it was time to face the wild hunt once and for all. With everything in place, it was time to call Eredin and his army. Since the hunt could detect the use of dark magic from anywhere to lure them, Ciri had to recite the most foul spell she knew.
God of stupidity, grant me your speed. Give my enemies your hairline. Amen.
In mere seconds, a monumental portal unfurled near the coastline, giving birth to a gargantuan ship and conjuring forth a blizzard that encased everything around it in an icy grip. Geralt and the vanguard of attackers found themselves abruptly halted, their progress impeded by the freeze. With the storm in place, advancing would be impossible. It was now Ciri's job to find and kill the mage responsible for the blizzard. And so it began. Ciri managed to successfully dispel the storm. However, the surge of energy left her in a weakened state, rendering her vulnerable and entirely at the mercy of the mage. Her feet awkwardly slid over the icy terrain, her legs threatening to yield to the idea of surrender. In that moment, Ciri found herself confronting death itself. Could she regain her strength? Could she persevere? While the Ice Mage might have foreseen the aftermath, what he could never have anticipated was the impending crescendo of boss music that came shortly after.
In the mood for a round of Gwent?
Now, with nothing standing between Geralt and Eredin, it was time to end this. Eredin was dead. The wild hunt was leaderless, aimless. It was a matter of time until it collapsed or dissolved. But despite the victory, things weren't right. Ciri was missing, and a monumental tempest brewed atop a jagged peak, a storm of unprecedented magnitude spiraling into a chaotic crescendo. Was there something they missed? Fearing the worst, Geralt set out to dispel it, navigating through the apocalyptic valley that sprawled below to reach the storm's epicenter. There, a dramatic twist awaited. Avallac'h was opening a portal to the White Frost, an ethereal phenomenon of ice and destruction. Without anyone to stop her, Ciri, in her quest for power, sought to draw from this mythical force, searching to enhance her abilities and become unstoppable. But interacting with such a force would carry the greatest of risks. You see, eons prior, in their crusade against malevolence, the Wild Hunt attempted to destroy the White Frost. Yet their efforts merely chipped away at its power, placing a curse upon themselves in the process, doomed to live an eternal life of ice. As much as Geralt tried to stop her, Ciri remained resolute, deaf to caution's counsel. She was determined to enter the portal. Geralt didn't want any of that. He just wanted his daughter back. But now, the only thing he could do was to wish to see her again. Countless individuals spanning vast distances, myriad creatures encountered, and an entire continent traversed, all driven by the uncompromising pursuit of her. And yet, Geralt can only ask himself, was it all for nothing?
What's happening?
Gwent, up for a round?
Oh, hell yes.